Welcome, one and all, to another episode of Pacific414 episode review. I'm your host, Mike, and in this episode, I'm going to be reviewing episode 6 of Star Wars Visions, Toby, or TOB1, however you wish to pronounce it. But this episode takes place on a planet where we meet Professor Mitaka, and his robot assistant, TOB1. And honestly, that has a familiar tone to it. Anyone else thinking Dr. Light from Mega Man and Mega Man himself, who was once Rock, turned into Mega Man? Well, that's the kind of vibe I got from this episode, and honestly, even with that, I got another vibe by looking at the character design of Toby, and that was Astro Boy. Now, I have nothing against Mega Man or Astro Boy, but as far as this episode was concerned, well, I'll get into that. This episode introduces us to Professor Mitaka and his assistant, TOB1, and they live in this area on this planet where there's no vegetation, no life. And Professor Mitaka's goal is to create life on the planet, and he has TOB1 as his assistant try to help him make this dream possible. Well, at one point, TOB1, who is basically the mind of a young boy inside a robot body and is capable of receiving upgrades, he has a fantasy of being a Jedi. The professor tells TOB1 that being a Jedi isn't as glamorous as it seems, although TOB1 still wants to become a Jedi even with that warning. So the professor ends up sending TOB1 on a quest to recover a kyber crystal that's on the planet. TOB1 searches high and low for this kyber crystal, but none is to be found. He returns back home to the professor's laboratory, and the professor in the episode tells him to stay out of the basement. Well, TOB1 ends up going into the basement, and that's where he finds a ship. He goes on to this ship and activates the ship. Once activated, he sends out a signal from the ship to a broadband frequency, I'm assuming, broadcasting a wideband message saying that he is commanding all surviving Jedi to come to this planet. Well, unbeknownst to the young robot, the Empire is lurking about as we see a Star Destroyer, and on board the Star Destroyer is an Inquisitor. TOB1 comes to find out after the professor comes to the basement and tells him, I told you to stay out of the basement, that there's a reason the professor forbid him from entering the basement, and that's because the professor himself is actually a Jedi, and he's been hiding from the Empire ever since Order 66. And unfortunately, the professor has to deactivate TOB1 and keep him hiding for a while, as he knows the Inquisitor and the Empire have retrieved the signal and they will soon be on their way to the planet. And the last thing that the professor hands TOB1 is his own lightsaber. TOB1 is hidden in this wall behind some brick. TOB1 shuts down. He comes to. There's a droid next to him, CO3, and when they come to and they emerge from behind the brick wall, they see that the lab has been ravaged and destroyed, and the professor is nowhere to be found. TOB1 goes outside of the ruins of the laboratory and he sees a pile of rocks and stone. And he immediately realizes that the professor has been killed. The professor has been killed by the Inquisitor, and before the Inquisitor even returns to this planet, TOB1, along with the droids that the professor created, help rebuild the laboratory and all the components inside, even the droids that were thought to be destroyed. So, the Inquisitor does indeed return to the planet, and when he returns to the planet, he sees TOB1 and says, I did not realize there was another Jedi here on this planet. TOB1 has an exchange with this Inquisitor, saying that he's a true Jedi, and the Inquisitor knocks him back a few. TOB1 is unconscious, and while unconscious, he has a vision with the professor, Professor Mitaka, who turns out to be Master Mitaka, as we've already discussed. And Master Mitaka knights TOB1 as a full Jedi Knight. So TOB1 engages his lightsaber once he regains consciousness and goes on the attack against the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor is able to trap TOB1's left arm, which breaks off. CO03 ends up equipping himself onto TOB1, so TOB1 has received 2 power-ups. He's got Jedi Knight, and he's got CO3 upgrade. Yeah, that's right. I'm making another Mega Man reference. And I know Mega Man was inspired by Astro Boy, in case anyone's wondering. So, TOB1 ends up engaging the Inquisitor once again. He ends up destroying the Inquisitor with the help of CO03 and the other droids by activating some hydraulics, and there's steam that comes out, destroying the Inquisitor. And the last we see is TOB1 going on board the ship that he found in the basement, and he's getting ready to go out into the galaxy to find other Jedi and help free those who are currently occupied by the Empire. Now, to be perfectly honest, my thoughts on this episode were I didn't particularly care for this episode all that much. It was too cutesy for my taste. Too overly cutesy for my taste, to be exact. I understand, you have different Japanese art houses doing different styles of anime, and there's going to be different stories, but this story was too cutesy for my taste. I just at my age now, I just don't particularly care for overly cutesy stuff. Even if it's not an anime, I don't care for particularly overly cutesy stuff. I just don't. I just don't. And, someone could say, oh, then you don't have fun. I know how to have fun, but when it's too overly cutesy, it takes me out of the story. And that's how this episode was. It took me out of the story from the get-go with the la 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 la. And just stuff like that. It's like, oh, come on. So, this isn't one of my favorite episodes. And if I was to keep score right now, I have 3 that I like and 3 episodes that I don't like. This episode was too cutesy for my taste. I didn't particularly care for Tatooine Rhapsody. I didn't care for the twins, and I don't particularly care for TOB1. I just don't like those episodes. And for various reasons. That's going to conclude this edition of Pacific414 episode reviews. Again, this episode was too cutesy for me. There comes a point where when it's overly cutesy, I just can't watch. And I struggle to watch this episode not once, not twice, but even the third time. I'm like, okay, all right, enough. So yeah, in case you haven't figured it out, but I know you have, I did not like this episode. So until next time, this has been Mike for Pacific414 episode reviews. Thank you all for watching. If you like this review or you don't like this review, give it a thumbs up, thumbs down. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. Share this video with your friends. Subscribe to the Pacific414 YouTube channel. And thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great day and take care.